or not. But we'll wait and eventually it will tell us it's officially live.
I think we're live.
Yay, great. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. So delighted to connect with you today. And welcome to this Facebook Live. I am with this beloved woman, Melisa Keenan, who is an incredible woman. She is a founder or the founder of the Heart Open Publishing Enterprise, and 8 times International and USA Today bestseller author. Wow, I didn't even know that. Congratulations.
Thank
An
you.
intimacy mentor and feminine mystic guide. And coming up, she's going to be guiding a whole group of beautiful women on a pilgrimage to the south of France. So we're going to start off with a conversation today with some questions about our overlap regarding Mary Magdalene. And for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Melissa Sophia Joy. I am a mystic, a spiritual teacher, naturopathic doctor, founder of Somatic Awakening. I can't really actually say founder, really co-founder, because Mary Magdalene really taught it to me, as
Mhm.
well as founder of the Mystery School Sophia Healing Academy. And Melissa and I, the other Melissa, have so much in common, especially regarding Mary Magdalene. So let's start off with the first question for you, Melissa. What was the moment where Mary Magdalene stopped being an idea for you and became something that you really felt in your body and in your life?
Mm, I think probably straight back to the moment that my friend said, "Do you know Mary Magdalene?" And it was like such an unassuming moment, and I thought it was kind of a dumb question because we were both part of the same religion at the time. I was like, "Yeah, what about her?" But it was like a call. It was an initiation. That question was not just a question. It sent me on this path of discovery and layer upon layer of getting to know this depth beyond the oppression and the hiding that has been done and suppression of Mary Magdalene, like seeing who she really was and layer upon layer recognizing then who I really am through her.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know so many, many people who are being tapped on the shoulder by Mary
Mhm.
Magdalene, the movement of Magdalene, which is a very energetic movement that is coming on board more and more. And that could be something that's really kind of mild, like aha, around who Mary Magdalene was, the fact that she was never a prostitute, the fact that, there are gospels that actually point to this very, very, very clear correlation that Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were married, and many other things, or having experiences like I had. I was awakened in the middle of the night. At the time, I was a yoga teacher and a Buddhist. And I was awakened in the middle of the night with a vision of Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, telling me it's time to remember who I truly am. So there's a whole huge spectrum of how Magdalene is showing up and leading us into the depths of who we truly are.
Mm,
So
I love that.
thank you. Thank you. And so I know that you're getting ready to lead people to the south of France, which is a place that is very dear to my heart. I've been on pilgrimage there for quite a long, extended period of time. It's such a powerful place. And so, why did you feel called to lead this work specifically in the south of France?
France has been like in a spiritual working relationship with me for the last 5 years. Um, like obsessively so. My kids are like, oh, mom and her obsession with France. It's so funny because as a younger person, when people talk about traveling to Paris and stuff, I was like, not interested, not interested really. But it started because I discovered that I have a huge lineage of ancestry in France. And so they were the first whisperings. I was doing a lot of genealogy research and things and discovered, you know, chateaus and castles and things that are still standing that my ancestors like built and sometimes like lived and died and raised generations in. And so I followed that path. And then the next year it was about Mary Magdalene. And I was like, oh, interesting. Look at all this. And I followed that path. And then I learned about the Cathars. And suddenly both of these paths like collided fast and hard. And I was like, because I was kind of like, oh, funny coincidence, but not a lot of my family, heritage sites were necessarily overlapping with these caves and things of Mary Magdalene. So I was like, this is just a funny coincidence that there's more France stuff coming through, and then I realized that I have ancestry who were Cathars, and perhaps even it was me. I'm not quick to put huge labels on these kinds of things, um, but recognizing like, oh, they're all calling. And then the next year became this other layer. France has these, cave carvings and things of vulvas and these, clear like feminine deity correlations where people were worshiping goddesses that date like way beyond 35,000 years ago. And I thought France was a young country. I mean, not as young as America, of course, but like youngish, and here's these things that speak otherwise. It just has felt like the land is calling me constantly. And the interesting thing is in all of this, I kept thinking, okay, this must be preparation for me to go. I'm gonna prepare now, go the following year. And then each year it was like, nope, you're going to keep preparing, go the following year. You're going to keep preparing, go the following year. And I definitely always saw me taking women, but I figured I would go by myself first. And this year was the year, well, end of last year, where I felt like, nope, now it's time for you to go and you're taking the women with you. And I haven't been before, but it feels symbolic and meaningful.
Beautiful. Yes, it's incredibly, incredibly meaningful. And all the things it sounds like is coming together where you're like, it's time and it's time to bring the women. And I think that's so incredibly beautiful. And for those of you who don't know a lot about South of France, maybe I can give a little historical
Oh, that
overlay.
would
I
be
actually,
beautiful.
thank you. I was interviewed for a podcast many, many months ago, and it just became live, and I just found out about it last night. And in it were all of these actual historical things that I
Mm.
can bring forward here. So the legend has it that Mary Magdalene and others, Mary Salome, Mary of Clopas, and others as well, were put on a boat. Either they decided to get on a boat or they were put on a boat. Some of the tradition says without oars. So there's some shady things happening there. And they were taken by the wind to the coast of France. Specifically, the tradition says that they landed in Saint-Marie-de-la-Mar. And from there, the tradition also says that Mary Magdalene was pregnant with Yeshua's child, and Saint Sarah was born there. And actually, if you go to Saint Marie de la Mar, which I understand this is part of where you all are going to be going to, actually in the crypt of this incredible church, I'll talk about the church in a moment, is Saint Sarah's skull. You can see her skull. And the church itself is so incredibly potent. There are all of these paintings, hundreds and hundreds of paintings. Well, I'll say a lot of paintings over hundreds of years, that would be more accurate, of all these miracles that have happened from these saints, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Salome, Mary of Clopas. And there are many, many areas throughout the south of France, Rennes-le-Chateau and Saint Baume, where, it says that Mary Magdalene lives in a huge cave for many years as she was finishing her life here and moving into her own ascension process. And the land itself is alive, and especially if you feel a connection with Mary Magdalene, things get really, really turned up, turned on, activated. I know whenever I was there for 3 weeks, and I came back and I had so many awakening experiences. It took really months to integrate the whole thing. So I'm so delighted that you're going to be going and taking a group of women with you. And as I understand it, that this also has a layer on it that's a pleasure pilgrimage. So tell me more about, what does pleasure as medicine actually look like in this retreat?
Ah, well, that's my favorite part. um, there's so much richness and depth to Mary Magdalene, but the way that Mary Magdalene has helped me step more fully into myself has been through the empowerment of embodying my own pleasure and pursuing my own pleasure and doing so unapologetically and doing so even when it feels uncomfortable or audacious or selfish or risky in some way. And I correlate all of this with Mary because I think that one of Mary's deepest threads of wisdom, frequencies, if you will, is this element of sex magic. Like, we don't know exactly. We don't have historical record of who she studied with, or, were there ancient Egyptian mystery schools or not, or whatever. But there's enough threads to assume, and there's enough similarities in her story to that parallel stories from ancient Egypt, that the more I have deepened my relationship with her, the more I have been able to access that in myself. And to me, this like embodied pleasure, it's like we have all of this power. We have this access to presence and to our sensuality and to our senses, this openness that really does tap us into like manifesting. But I feel like that's just like surface level of what sex magic is. Like, I mean, potentially the power of resurrection through sex. Like, here's the spectrum, right? You could manifest some extra cash, or you could like tap into resurrection. And I don't need to resurrect anyone, but I'm like, if that power lives in me, and I have lived the majority of my life believing that it's bad, it should be shunned. I felt shame. I felt like I needed to hide or turn it off, or something's wrong with me. And all of the plethora of things that we experience around our pleasure and our sensuality. Like, I want to tap into what it feels like to be in power with that. And that has been my journey in the last 5 years. And that's what I really want women to just gain a deeper access to, whatever that looks like for them. And you know what that looks like in practice in the pilgrimage itself is simple things like slowing stuff down and dropping into our body more often. We just need these things, and it's stuff that kind of our society and the fast pace and plus all the layers of shame and taboo and yada yada nonsense prevent us from recognizing how much magic lives in our body.
Absolutely. And this is a really important aspect, and that can be very confusing. And, we don't really have the records that really tell us a lot. I mean, even with Mary's gospel, the one that has been found, I think it was in Germany, it only has portions of it. And the other one that has come out, there's another one that's come out that is the complete gospel of Mary Magdalene, the gospel of the beloved. It is said to actually have Cathar roots, but there's not actually any fragments that we can look at to see what is this. And as a mystic, we have to lean back into what we're told, what we download, what we can feel into. And I feel 100% resonant with the fact that Mary Magdalene was a priestess of Isis, rather, and learned multiple levels of mystery as to how to be with a great master like Joshua. And of course, part of that is sex magic, and part of that is holding the space. Part of that was embodying Sophia completely so she could hold the complete space so he could do what he did and resurrect and move into unification with Sophia. I could go on and on, but there's
Mm.
so much that's there. And that sexuality, that Eros Gamos, that real deep, deep, deep union requires us to let go, requires us to fully be in our pleasure, requires us to actually allow ourselves to 100% come into contact with that divine energy inside of us. So I'm really excited for you and for all of the women who are going to be going on this retreat. So how is this experience different from other Magdalene or spiritual retreats that people may be familiar with?
I think the element of bringing in pleasure is a big like differentiator that uh, we don't intend to. It's not a seminar. It's not a conference. There's not going to be sit down and take notes. Any kind of modalities taught or things like that. It's about going and being an experience. And I think very related to that is that this is not being taught by a guru. Um, I don't channel Mary Magdalene. I totally respect people that do. I know that's something that you have a deep connection with. I could, but it feels more important to me that I hold space for people to channel whatever is moving through them, as opposed to trying to be somebody's authority for them. That like everyone that comes together is gathering in their own internal authority and have learned the value of, drawing from that well as opposed to seeking from outside of themselves. And it's my job to really hold that container, to hold a space where everyone can come with all of their lived experiences, their stories, their unique culture, their unique gender identity, the different ways that they have come into this meeting with Mary Magdalene, and that they walk away more full inside of themselves. Above all, that's what matters. Like if somebody comes to this and they are meeting Mary Magdalene for the first time, perfect. And if they come and there's someone like you who has this rich relationship with Mary Magdalene, perfect, because each one is going to get exactly what they came for, because it's about relationship to self and to the land, and then celebration and community and sisterhood.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think you've already a little bit touched on this question, but I sense intuitively that there might be more there. And so what do you really hope in the core of things that a woman remembers about herself by the time she leaves France?
There's this real shift when you actually start to apply pleasure as the strategy instead of just the reward. It's and I've walked that journey, and it's not like not something you perfect. It's not about that. It's just that many of us have been raised with suffering mentality. Our ancestors and things like weren't given the same type of opportunities that we had. I was absolutely raised to believe that the harder the thing was, the more like righteous it was. Like, let's choose the hardest thing possible. And a lot of that was taught through the lens of like, well, look at how much Jesus suffered. So, like, carry your own cross kind of an attitude. And I really, really hope that the women who come, hopefully they've had a taste in this shift, but that they deepen into that so that when they return home, they feel full, like overflowing from that well, of knowing oneself, which is exactly what Mary really speaks to. Gnosis is the whole thing. To just be able to be a little more present, a little more attuned to your own desires, a little more attuned to your full hell yes, and a little more clear in your decisions and spaciousness in your life and prioritization of the things that really bring you joy. I always say it's funny because the equation doesn't feel like rocket science, but when you apply it, it does, which is if you focus on pleasure, you'll have a life that's full of more pleasure. And that sounds like so duh. But in application, it's challenging. It like bumps up against all of our conditioning. And the reward is we find ourselves more magnetic to the opportunities that are meant for us, to the people that we were meant to serve, to the places and spaces where we were meant to be. And who doesn't want that?
Absolutely. You know, my sense of it is that in that connecting, it's like a spiritual practice. It's like opening to the multiple levels of what the divine frequencies, especially divine feminine and the Magdalene frequency, offers to us, because it is about connecting into the pleasure, the beauty, the dropped in, the peace, the the ecstasy that happens when we are more embodied, when we can make contact with that divine energy inside of us. And that often does feel like ecstasy and pleasure. And whenever we hone in on that, it opens up even more.
Mm. It's
Yeah.
been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you because I know that you carry so much Magdalene wisdom, lineage, and experience. I would just love to ask you, like, for those who are watching, which would be a seeker, someone who has resonated with everything we've spoken to, like, do you feel like anything feels important that they know or in their own search with the Magdalene and self-gnosis?
You know, in the big picture, my sense of it is that Magdalene has many different nuances. Some people gravitate more to, like you, the pleasure principle. Some people more gravitate to what I'd call the Sekhmet Kali aspect of Magdalene. Some people gravitate more to the embodiment and the healing offering that she offers. And that's more of my path, because that's what I've been shown, because I'm a healer and have been for really many lifetimes. But the big picture is this: there is a whole web that is being activated, has been activated for many years. It's activating more and more. There's actually a new book called The Magdalene Revolution, right? That's really turning on many, many deeper soul awarenesses, intuitive awarenesses of not only what Magdalene represented, what Magdalene represents, and what Magdalene is bringing to us in today's world. Because as we know, if we've been raised in, typical Christianity, there's been a huge amount of suppression about what Christianity really, really is. I don't even call it Christianity. I call it the Christ tradition, because there's so much that happened before Rome got involved that was mystical, that was embodied, that was connected to living with the Holy Spirit, that was connected to living this gnosis. So Mary Magdalene is all about helping us embody our own unique version of that energy that lights us up, that's aligned with our soul mission, our soul essence, to bring us forward to actually be living more and more in alignment with being divine and being human. That's the deepest essence.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. I
Absolutely.
that I'm so glad you spoke to that piece too, the human and the divine, because I spent the majority of my spiritual pursuits in my childhood and adult life trying to bypass the human, thinking that that was the goal, thinking that like, the less human I can be, the better. And Mary has been such a teacher in that. And what a gift to actually access true grace that like this body is the whole point, and this human and the emotions and the stuttering and the insecurities and the jealousy and the everything that we go through as a human is the divine, is absolutely perfect and here for our learning and so rich and beautiful. Like, what a gift. I finally feel like I can deeply celebrate what it means to be alive and what it means to have a body. And that has all come in relationship to Mary and the little threads that she's shown me along the path. And so, yum. Thank you so much
Yes.
for sharing with me in this conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll just say one more thing, because I know we need to wrap up here. There are parts of our humanity that are hard. they're hard to digest. They tell us that we're not good enough, that, that we'll never get to where we're going to go, or, that our stuttering is terrible, or that our jealousy is terrible, right? And so the more that we can actually make contact with the divinity that Mary Magdalene brings in, and that is our divine birthright that flows inside of us, that activates inside of us, the more that those parts can be held and transformed. And as they relax, our ego relaxes, and then we get to actually bring in more of our divinity in relationship, in Heros Gamos, in union with our humanity. And that, my friend, is an incredible awakening journey. And that's what I'm all about. That's why I teach, and da 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 da. So I want to come back to you, because I know that there is a way, I can imagine, that people can find out more about your retreat and how to sign up or have conversations with you to take the next step. How do people do that?
Yes, I will put a
Hard to
link.
digest. They
Whoopsie
tell
doodle.
us.
I'm trying to put a link in the chat right now for the landing page to learn more information, and there's also a link on there to book a call with me, which I definitely recommend. If you're thinking about signing up, have a conversation, and we can explore if this feels resonant and feels like the right fit. And yeah, I of course would love to talk to anybody who's interested, and I also would really encourage everyone, go give Melissa Sophia a follow for all of her content and things. Oh, it's just beautiful. So if you're following the Magdalene path, you want to be hearing what she has to say.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll also make sure to post this on my Facebook page. So it's been a delight connecting with you today, Melissa. And if you want to find out more about me, I'll just say you can go to Sophia Healing Academy, but definitely check out sophiahealingacademy.com. Rather, definitely check out Melissa's amazing retreat coming up. So many blessings on that incredible journey, dear one.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for watching. See you next time.